Sometime near 7:30, there was an incident on 11 Grace Lane in the town. One of the occupants of that dwelling was able to leave 11 Grace Lane and make their way to a neighbor's residence, informing the neighbor that there was an ongoing domestic assault involving her daughter at 11 Grace Lane. At 7:39, the Franklin police received a 911 call from that neighbor's dwelling about an active domestic dispute at 11 Grace Lane. They were told that it appeared to be physical in nature and may involve some blunt force. Within 5 minutes, the Franklin police had sent officers. 3 initially were assigned and sent to the scene. They arrived within 5 minutes at 11 Grace Lane. They did the perimeter search, approached the house, and attempted to gain access through one of the doors. They actually saw smoke and fire, and they saw an individual who we have come to learn at that time is and was the estranged husband, Brendan Owen, 47, of East Bridgewater. As Mr. Owen became aware of the police presence at the entranceway, he then attempted to alight out of another entrance in the dwelling towards the driveway, where Franklin had also stationed police. Police officers let all the other officers know that Mr. Owen was headed in his direction. Franklin police were then able to, with the use of a taser, non-lethal force, bring Mr. Owens into custody. At that time, the victim, who is Shirley Owen, age 49, of that address, mother, who had gone to the neighbor's house, and the neighbor came over and advised the Franklin police that her daughter was still inside the dwelling. The Franklin police immediately went back into the dwelling, which was now on fire. Franklin Fire Department had also started to respond to the scene with EMS. They found her in the area between the house and the garage area. They attempted emergency measures to try to resuscitate her. When they found her, she was unresponsive, and there was clear evidence of blunt force trauma. She was pronounced dead at the scene by the medical team of the Franklin Fire Department. And Franklin Fire, I also have the deputy. I missed the deputy, my favorite, the fire department. The deputy's here as well, who has told us when the fire department got there. Deputy Joe Barberi said that the Franklin Fire Department had to call in neighboring towns. The house was burning pretty good when they got there, and they were able to bring it under control, but the house is probably going to be considered a total loss. So the matter is really active at this time. It's ongoing, and the members of the State Police, the Fire Marshal's Office, Franklin Police, and the Franklin Fire Department are all cooperating. We don't have a cause and manner of death. The medical examiner will provide that, and the Fire Marshal's Office will continue to work closely with all involved to take a look at the nature of the fire as well.
Where is Brendan now, and what will happen to him today?
Well, Brendan is being processed here at the Franklin Police Department. We hope, with some expectation, that we may have as early as today an arraignment in the Rentham District Court, but that's dependent on a lot of other factors as to whether or not we can complete the necessary processing to get him to the court today. So that's ongoing right now as we speak. Let me start again. I'll start to the right and go to the left, so go ahead.
One of the charges is alleged that he set the fire?
Well, I expect that the initial charge is going to be a murder charge, but we don't have all of the charges as well. There could be a domestic violence related charge, there could be arson, so that's all being worked out at this time, so I can't answer that with any definity.
Was there a history of domestic violence between these two people?
I'm going to let the chief answer that question, because he's been an officer in town for many years, and he can answer that as well.
Yeah, the answer to the question is yes. The family's been known to us for the past 7 years, off and on with probate and some other related issues, and there is an active restraining order at that residence, and there is a case currently pending in the Rentham District Court.
And have they lived at that home for 7 years?
I don't have that information as far as how long.
And I understand there's 2 children. Were they in the house at the time?
No, they were not. They're safe and they're fine.
There are 2 children of the family, but they were not in the dwelling at the time.
No, they were not.
Chief, can you just talk about these calls for you and your officers arriving on the scene to something that it must be pretty traumatic? What's that like for your officers to arrive to a scene like that?
It's very traumatic. They did an excellent job. I mean, they put themselves in. They did the best they could. They put themselves in harm's way. They tried everything they could. But yeah, on a Friday morning, They weren't probably expecting something of that magnitude, but we always have to be prepared, and they did an excellent job doing what they did.
They were there in the middle of this. Usually we get called out for these things and it's over and you deal with the aftermath. This was actively going on. Is that right, the way you described it?
Fire going on.
There was a phone.
No doubt a fire.
So this was actually happening in your office. Can you speak to that about?
When they arrived, they had to deal with a number of different things. And yes, thankfully somebody did end up making the phone call. They were able to get there within several minutes, and then they were able to act as best they could with the situation that they had at hand. And like I said, they did a tremendous job.
Do we know how the fire was set? Like what was used?
It's under
We don't know. It's under
active investigation. Sergeant from the fire marshal's office is here as well, and he's working with the Franklin Fire. That's part of this ongoing picture. I guess what I would say is this is an isolated incident. People who appear to know each other. It's only contained to that area. We don't consider this to be an unsafe situation. I know there's been a lot of other talk about things going on in the news. What I would like to leave people with at this time of year, domestic violence cases are always bad cases. At this time of year, sometimes it comes to a head, and some of the things that go on in people's family around the holiday season is always difficult, and this is the worst result that we get to see, is a death of an individual. So the officers that from what I've learned, the chief, I'd asked the chief earlier that this is a very safe town. The last murder in town was 24 years ago. The chief actually tells me he was a young officer, only on the job for a year or two at that time. And that's the last time we've had a murder charge in town. They were younger officers, well-trained, experienced. To me, they did all the right things. They encountered the fire and smoke. They tried to save the victim. They brought the suspect under arrest and without the use of any kind of lethal force and in a very trying situation. So, we'll learn more as we go on, but that it's not something that anybody looks forward to, and I think they, have done a really good job.
Chief, we had heard that there were reports that the suspect was pouring gasoline at the scene.
There's a number of different areas they will investigate. The fire marshal's office will make a determination of when if any accelerant was used, and that's again part of the ongoing investigation.
Okay. One more thing, Chief. Can you talk about that previous case at all that's pending? With all these names?
It was a restraining order violation that's pending in the Rentham District Court.
How long has that restraining order been in place? The current one?
We think that there has been a long-term restraining order, and the matter that is pending is it was scheduled for hearing, and it's as to whether or not the hearing was to determine whether or not there was a violation. That obviously has not occurred at this time. Franklin Police obviously have been notified of an incident or incidents enough that they had filed a request with the court to have a hearing to determine whether or not the suspect was violating the terms of an existing restraining order.
So he's been out of the house for a significant period of time?
It appears that's the case, yes.
When was that hearing supposed to be held?
I believe in early January.
So do you know
mentioned the
how long he's
taser
been out of the house?
I don't know. I don't have that at this time.
You mentioned the taser. Was he armed? Was there a reason? Was he resisting? Can you describe what led to that?
Again, all I would tell you is that no one likes to use lethal force. The police officers here are some of the better trained in the county, and so through their training and experience, they were able to obviously bring him under control. I don't have the full circumstances other than the fact that they did have to deploy a taser and to bring him into custody. So that's all I have to say on that matter.
Any potential weapons recovered at the scene? Household objects?
Again, they're looking for cause and manner as well. I can't give you that. So they are looking for weapons and other types of instruments that may have been used as a blunt force instrument. So that's all part of the investigation.
And it was her mother living with her?
It appears that she was there at that time. I can't tell you that I know that she was a long-term resident or not. I just don't know that. But she happened to be there at the time this was going on, and that's part of the investigation as well. The mother has been transported to a local hospital and suffering non-life-threatening injuries.
And where were the kids at the time?
I'm not going to tell you where the kids other than to say that they were not in the dwelling at the time.
I don't know if you can speak to this, but is the school providing any counseling for their peers and that?
I've been in touch with the superintendent, and they are working with them and the other students and so forth.
And the windshield of the car that you brought in was smashed. Was that caused by this incident?
Can't speak to that.
And the woman who was deceased, where was she found?
She was found in an area, I'm told, between the house and the garage.
So outside the house?
I don't know whether it was a part of the dwelling or a breezeway. I just don't know. I haven't been down to the scene.
I don't know if you can speak specifically to this. We heard a hammer with the blunt object.
Again, that's part of the ongoing investigation. If there's an instrument that was used, they'll try to uncover what the instrument was and piece together the any testimony we get, evidentiary matters. So that's active and part of the investigation.
There were reports that the suspect was pouring gas on the house.
So the same thing. If an accelerant was used, then the fire department, the deputy chief of the fire department tells me the house was going pretty good when they got there, and they got there pretty quick after the initial call. If an accelerant or something was used, the fire marshal's office is actively working and on scene right now as we're speaking to do that kind of work and investigation, and that will be part of any additional charges or any information that we need. We will glean through the ongoing investigation.
Could you just speak a little bit about this domestic violence end of it? As you mentioned, the last homicide in town was almost a quarter of a century ago, but we did have a fatal shooting last year. And Franklin always ends up at like one of the safest communities in New England or whatever, all those studies that are ever done. Now you get these sorts of things happening a week before Christmas. Could you speak to that, to the residents, what they should be thinking about all this stuff taking place now?
I mean, again, yes, we for the last 10 years, we've been named one of the safest communities, not only in Massachusetts, but in the United States for a population of our size. Like we said, this is an isolated incident. These are people that knew one another. It's unfortunate, but the town is no less safe right now than it was this morning, is what I would tell everybody.
Is there a message for victims of domestic violence? They often seek restraining orders as a means to keep something like this from happening.
I mean, if there's anybody here in Franklin or anywhere else that's dealing with something like this, reach out to your police department. I mean, we have a social worker that works for us full-time, 40 hours a week. Should be more than happy to reach out and try to get the services that you may need. There's advocates down at the court.
The district attorney's office has help. The probate court has help. I mean, we want people to be safe, and obviously this is the worst result that we hope that we get to see, and it's awful. Especially, it doesn't matter what time of year, but I think this time emotions start to take over. A lot of relationships start to come under some heavy pressure, and we want people to be safe. And so, we hope that they will take advantage of the help, the hotlines, even seeking safety if they have to, until they can work something out that keeps them in a safe place.
Did he have a GPS monitor on it?
Again, it's part of the investigation. I'm not aware of that.
So he may or may not be arraigned today, Paul?
It's really a question of how quickly they can process them and get them to the court. I mean, we're trying to, is all I can tell you. Andy Yaz is here. We'll handle the case as an arraignment. David Traub will advise everybody probably within the hour.
Chief, did the suspect sneak up into the house?
That's all we have to say. Thank you.